Let's move on to main topic number 2. And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Sam Spril, who writes, "Hey, John and Rob. Don't know if you've seen this, but the director of the Hunger Games trilogy, Francis Lawrence, is set to return to direct a prequel movie based on the novel with the Hunger Games universe. What do you guys think of this, plus the success of the original trilogy?" All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yeah, listen, ever since, Warner Brothers and Lionsgate kind of found themselves in the same kind of predicament, in that they had these incredibly popular IPs in Hunger Games and Harry Potter come to an end, and since then, both have really been scrambling to see if they could find something to replace it. And ultimately, they've both just gone back to the same thing in prequel territory. Of course, we have in Warner Brothers The Fantastic Beasts, and now Lionsgate is talking about going back. Now, Rob, this dropped just as we were doing the John Campea Show yesterday. But so here's the official word on this from the Hollywood Reporter. The Hunger Games prequel film will focus on, I'll never pronounce this right, Coriolanus Snow, I just call him President Snow, at age 18. At age 18 years of age. Okay, so the question is, are they going to get a new actor, or are they going to de-age Donald Sutherland like they do Irishman style? All right, so here we go. At age 18 years before he would become the tyrannical president of Panem, young Carrera is handsome and charming. And though the Snow family has fallen on hard times, he sees a chance for a change in his fortunes when he is chosen to be a mentor for the 10th Hunger Games, only to have his elation dashed when he is assigned to mentor the girl tribute from impoverished District 12. Francis Lawrence, who helmed Catching Fire, Mockingjay Part 1, and Mockingjay Part 2, will return to the director's chair. This, of course, coming us from the Hollywood Reporter. And listen, I'll tell you what. There's a couple things that hit my mind when I read this. On the one hand, I think, yeah, this seems to make sense. Look, Hunger Games, whatever you think of Hunger Games, was an unmitigated success. It was a huge success. And the impact it had and the cultural footprint it made on pop culture was huge and undeniable. I mean, there's even this big famous picture of LeBron James in the locker room at halftime of one of his basketball games, sitting there with a Hunger Games book and reading Hunger Games. I mean, it had a huge impact. It's almost some guaranteed money, so it seems to make sense to maybe want to go back to that. At the same time, I got to say, Rob, by the time Mockingjay Part 2 happened, and listen, I'll tell you straight up, I like the Hunger Game movies. I like them. I wasn't a big fan of the final one, though. I got to say, I didn't like the final film, Mockingjay Part 2. By the time they got to the end of Mockingjay Part 2, I was ready to leave Panem. I was ready to leave. And again, going back to this notion of let's go backwards. Let's tell what happened before. It's just a motif I'm quite frankly tired of. And so while on the one hand, I totally see that this makes sense, I can totally see why Lionsgate would want to get into this thing. I could totally see why the author would want to do another one. Those were good days, man. Those were good days, the Hunger Game days for these guys. So I'm a little bit torn. This could be really good. It could be a little bit of a waste. I'm not really sure at this point. Rob, you hear about this, particularly bringing back the original producers, bringing back one of the directors of several of the films. What do you think about them going back and doing this?
Well, I read the books, and I didn't like the book Mockingjay. So the movies that they split up, I thought they were kind of the weakest of the bunch. I really liked the first Hunger Games book, and I really liked the movie as well. And Catching Fire was okay, even though it was kind of repetitive. But I think this sounds interesting. I mean, obviously, the one thing I like about prequels the best is when they go and they look at a story from a totally different angle. They don't just say, well, here's our characters as young people. When they're talking about the main character. But I love the fact that this goes back to look at Coriolanus Snow. I think what a great idea. I really giving us some insight into how did Panem become Panem, and how did Snow become such a dick? Why did he cry? I'm like, this kind of story appeals to me. And I think it's a really interesting way to go. I mean, obviously, look, these young adult the Hunger Games is arguably, you've got Twilight, Harry Potter, and the Hunger Games. Those are kind of the Gone with the Wind of they're all three of them are major young adult franchises that worked. They worked as they were phenomenal book sales. They had phenomenal movies. And I can see, look, they're doing Fantastic Beasts now. I'm expecting where did vampires come from in the Twilight universe? I don't know, but where's that book? I'm sure it's on its way. And now we're getting the Hunger Games. And Francis Lawrence is a great director. I'm a huge fan of his. And I'm in, man. I'm excited. And I'm going to read the book. I pre-ordered that shit, son.
I'm sure that you did. So here the question is, guys, what do you think about this? Now, you may not have been the biggest fan of Hunger Games. Maybe it wasn't a property that was for you. But thinking objectively for a second, do you think this is a smart move on the studio's part, or do you think this kind of reeks of desperation? I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I'm still a little bit torn on it. What do you guys think? Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys.